What's up guys, and welcome to another video here on Optcg. So the other day Bandai finally revealed another Sweden leader. So let's get into it. Okay, so in this video we're going to talk first about my initial thoughts on the leader. Then we're going to go through some techs, and after that I'm going to talk a little about what I think will be the best deck list for the leader. So first of all, what the leader do now, we just have the queen here as a placeholder. Because Nami has not dropped to the sim yet, but it's a 5,000 leader with 4 life, blue and yellow, and whenever a life is like moved from any of the life areas during your turn, if you have 7 cards less in hand, you get to draw a card. That means essentially if you attack your opponent, he takes a hit, you get to draw one. If you play a card that takes a life from your own, you get to draw one. If you, for example, play Hiyori, put one up and put one down, then you're also going to get to draw a card. That effect is really good, and we also have this the effect I think most people think is the broken one, and it's on your opponent's turn. I don't know if it's attack, I think it's on attack. It should be on attack. You can trash one card from your hand to pump the leader to 7,000 or with 2,000 for the rest of the turn. And I think initially that effect is really good, especially for this kind of deck and what you want to do. I think the problem with 2-color leaders throughout the history of this game has been that 2 issues. The first one is the resources. A lot of them, like you start with 1 less life, so you start with 1 less card essentially, but also you all have to trash card earlier to hinder aggression from the opponent. So in that case, it's like a double edge or 2 problems within the same thing, having 4 life. And also the problem has been, you lose against these more aggressive decks. So if you look at like the first 4 sets, it was Zoro, Whitebeard, and Law who were the top 3. I would say that Whitebeard and Zoro were probably the best decks, and Laws in the top 3. And all of these decks wiped the floor of these multicolor decks. Like no one else were playable. And then first time we actually got a 2-color leader with 4 life that was playable was Sakazuki, and as we all know, that leader was really good and dealt with a lot of the issues that the other 2-color leader had. And from then on, I don't think we have had another best deck that's 2-color except red and purple Law, and both of those decks are banned right now and fundamentally broken. I think the only way like 2 life leaders for life is good is if they are broken, and Nami handles with both of these issues, with resources because you draw cards, but also with standing up to aggressive decks a lot better. So I think it's a cool shift and it's a well-designed leader, and I'm really hyped for it, especially with the deck building, because you can trash any card and pump your leader. So you can trash, for example, a Sanyi and the leader will still get pumped. So it kind of also changes the fundamentals of the game with deck building to make you play like build around a little bit more. So first, we can talk a little bit about the Warlord package. I don't think it will see that much play in the deck because you want to really utilize your leader ability. So spamming the word bodies and swinging with them will make your opponent attack into them, and then you're going to get rid of resources, and then you're not utilizing your leader ability. But also they will be able to take your cards out, and you will lose a lot of resources on that. So it is an option, but I don't think it will be played. Then we have the Vivi card, who's coming out in EB02. On play, if your leader is multicolor and you have 5 or less life cards in 5 less cards in hand, draw 2 cards. This might see play. It's a decent effect, and as I said, I think this is a decent effect because you get to draw 2 cards and your leader is multicolored. We will see if the deck will need more draw power, because if other cards will go over, but this is definitely an option that might see play. I think in general this deck wants to go to a direction where your early game is more about setting up and generating resources than putting out bodies. And then in late game you win by your bigger value drops. So this might see play if you talk about that. Then we have these these blockers that stacks your deck. I don't know if this and Ace will see play. It's an option. I think both are played in Queen because they are really good with his leader ability. But because we're getting the new blocker Nami, who's a 5/6 and draws 3 and puts 2 on bottom or on top of life, I don't think these 2 will see play. But they are definitely an option. Then we have Asani, who I think has a higher probability of seeing play in the deck. It all depends what the strategy is and how you want to go to late game. So it's really good together with the Nami card, because you get to stack your deck for next turn with 2 cards. You draw 1 and then you can play Sunny next turn to maybe play out a Yamato or any other big drop from blue or yellow. So I think this card will see play. It's searchable by the new Veggie card that's coming out, the blue one, who looks at the top 4 and takes a 2 cost or higher straw hat or fire tank pirates. So I think this card will see play, especially if you're going for this more straw hat package. Maybe as a 2 or 3 off, we will see. But if you draw multiples of him, you can get value by your leader, by trashing him. So it's not the worst to see more of, but you most likely just want to drop him one time during the game, and then from there on. We went through the Warlords. Boa is option 2 for the deck. I don't think it will see play, but it's a 6/8, it's crazy good standard, and it has a good effect to answer to more aggressive big bodies. But you're not really looking to have 4 Don over, or you're always going to put one on the leader, so you will have 3 Don to spare. And in decks like the Flamingo, when you play this card in 07, you could use those 3 Don, for example, to do a leader hit. So I don't know if this will see play. And also it can't freeze Luffy's, which is really is really unfortunate, because there's a lot of good Luffy's running around, especially with the new purple one. So I don't think this card will see play, but it's definitely an option that may be worth to pick up in case it does, because it's really cheap. Then we have Yuzu. I think this card is a guaranteed 4 off. You will most likely play more of these early game cards like Flampe, Hiwari, and then the Searcher, the Veggie. So I think you get a lot of value with these lower bodies, and you essentially get to return anything on curve, and you have a 6/7 good stats. So I really think this is a automatic 4 off in the deck. Then we have Cavendish. I don't know if he will see play. The reason why is because, as I said, with the Warlord package, I don't think you're really looking to drop all of these early game cards, which are below 7k, and give your opponent free swings. But this one essentially gives you a resource, so it might see play, but it's not as valuable without Colosseum or Corrida. So we will see, but it might be option. Then we have Kyros, which is also an interesting card. Sadly, your leader is not black, so you can't decrease anything to bounce any card you want. I know this card sees play in Boa, so I think this deck will be like stylistically kinda similar to Boa in the way that you want to respond to board and then drop this more value drops in late game. But I don't know if this card will see play, because we get a lot of other good options to do that. We went over the Warlords. Then we have the Flampe. I think this card is a 4 off in this deck. I heard some people maybe talk about like, yeah, maybe not, but I think it's crazy to do it on turn 1 or 2 to amass your hand with resources. And this leader actually might be like Enel and Newgate, that you want to take life early, so you go down to lower life in the early game, and then you can like use your leader more in the late game to trash cards, and then you have this super big hand where you can defend yourself really easy and get value of, for example, Yamato, if you're looking to play it. So I think this card is auto include 4. At worst case it's 2k if you don't want to use it in the matchup, so I really think you should play this card in this deck. Then we have Shirahoshi. I also think this card might be a viable option. It's a 2/2 blocker, or 2/0 blocker, so it's a 2 cost blocker but a lot better. For example, we play Vasco Shot, and as you all know, that card is really good, so I don't see why this card could not see play in this deck. And also it has the added effect, if it gets KO'd, you get 1 life, so it will, in most matchups, just act as a blocker. So I think this is a viable option. You should probably pick it up if you're looking to play this deck, just so you have it, so it does not randomly increase in price and you can't afford it. So I would probably pick up this. And it's also a EB1 card, and EB1 cards have gone up a lot in price. Then we have the 2-cost Sunny, 2/3. This might see play. You essentially get to draw 1 card with it and trigger your leader, but the problem is that turn I think you could invest the 2 Don on leader and swing, and you essentially do the same thing, and you're probably getting a hit in. You're not drawing with the effect of Sunny, but you're not dropping it the turn before and losing a card in hand. So this card might see play. Could be nice to pick up just to have it in a binder or in the wherever you have your cards. Then we have Shirahoshi. I don't think I have to explain this card. It's a graceful charity. It's a really good trigger. We will see this card sees play if the deck needs it. I don't think it will, but I might be wrong on that. Then we have Katakuri. I think this is a card that definitely will be on people's radar for this deck. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it actually removes some cringe card that decks like this has a problem with. For example, the 8-cost Kid into Bonnie, which I think will pick up a little bit more come OP10. But in general, I think there's better options, especially the 8-cost Luffy that's coming out, the Secret Rare. And then we have Capone Veggie. I don't think I have to explain this card. The most frustrating card ever to play against. This might also see play in the deck as a defensive option. We will see. Maybe there's some better cards that can slot in as 2Ks, but this card is definitely good. Then we have Yamato. I think this card might see play. It all depends on what direction the meta goes and what direction this deck takes. So, for example, as I told before, with you might be the case where you want to take a lot of life early game and go down to 1, and then from there you want to defend your life, like a little bit like how Whitebeard plays and NL plays. And then a card like Yamato becomes a lot better because it will most likely, in most game, always get off its ability to heal 1, and then healing 1 is really good, especially when you're playing a yellow deck. Then we have Gedatsu. This might also see play. It all depends on the direction of the leader. If it will become more of this NL starve leader that wants to go to late game, this card might see play. And even maybe if you want to attack your opponent, it also can see play because they will maybe guard their life. And in that case, this card will get a lot more value. But yeah, this might be a good pickup just to have in case it's played. And then we have the Wano package. I just wanted to add on it because I think these cards are interesting. I don't think they really fit in the theme of the deck, but I could see them seeing play. Especially because Kikunoju is a really good card, but it has a condition that your opponent has to have 3 life or less. And maybe they're not going to go that early. If they're not a 4 life leader, then they will most likely go down to 3 early, and then this card becomes really valuable. So this card might see play. It all depends on. It does not have counter, but you can use trash to leader if you don't need it. And Hiyori, of course, it's a part of the Wano package, but I think it will always be slotted in as a 4 in the deck. First of all, it triggers leader ability, makes you draw a card, it stacks you a trigger, and you will play a lot of good triggers, and it's also a bounce target for users, so you get up to 2k in late game and can use it either multiple times, or you can just have it in hand as a 2k. So I think this is auto include as a 4-off, and if you don't have it, you should probably pick it up as soon as possible. Then we have Momonosuke. This is interesting, it's part of the Wano package, so it's the healer who puts a Wano card in life. So you can, for example, put your Hiyori that you played in early game in life and then get it back to hand and either have a 2k or reuse it and actually have a nice body in Momo. As I said, I don't think this package will see play, but this is definitely an interesting card. And the last card for the Wano package, you have the Nekomamushi. So it has the same trigger you can play him if your opponent has 3 life or less as Kikunoju. But what it does is if you put 2 down under him, he can swing into anything that's active. So this might be option to have for Burgess and other cringe cards that are standing. But as we have, for example, option in Graveblade, I don't know if we need this kind of card, but if the deck has those kind of problems, this card could actually easily slot into the deck as a good drop into those specific matchups. And because we are blue-yellow and we'll play like some of the cycling effects, we could actually just like bottom deck it or just trash it as a 1k counter if you don't need it. Then we have Frankie, the Egged Straw Hat one. I don't think I have to explain this. It's a good trigger, it's a 2k, we will see if it's displays, it all depends. But it's definitely a viable option for the deck. And then we have the Egged Nami. I also think this might be viable. Trash a trigger, KO something that costs 5 or less. That's a really good effect, I don't think I have to go into that more. And it also has the trigger to activate the on play. So if this deck needs to remove things in the early game, or maybe even later for decks that amasses boards, I think this card might see play. So you should probably pick it up just to have it before it gets too expensive. Because it's an 08 card and 08 is not that good of a set. So if cards from that set becomes good, then they can easily go up in value fast. Because there's not a lot of other value in the set. And then we have this more trash life package, which I've seen some people talk about. It might be an option. You might play like standalone one of these cards, or you might play all of them. I think the Hawkins card is the best one, because there's not a lot of early game drops for this deck that we really want. But Hawkins and Kikunoju are cards that we can play out and swing with, and we actually want your opponent to swing into them so they get value. So I think this might be played in the deck as a 4-off, just to have to play on curve. And if they don't remove it, they will have to 5k swing at lead every turn, and if they remove it, they will lose a life. So it's really good. The Kid trashes a life on play, rest itself, and then in the end of the turn you get to draw 1 and trash 1 if your opponent has 2 less life. I think this might see play. I think the new 8 cost loop is a little bit better in this card, especially in this type of deck. But if we go to this more trash life version, I think this card might see play. And then the same with the Lin. This is like kind of the same as these, but it gives the option for opponent to discard 2 cards, which also is good to give them the option to do. Because yeah, I think this deck wants to out resource and then win in late game. So I think this card also might see play if you play this more burn build. And then we have the black-yellow Luffy package. I don't think this was a play, but I wanted to take it up as maybe an option, and these cards are really cheap to get, so you could probably pick them up just to have them in case they are played. Then we have for the events. First of all, we have Sunny's Pilaf. I think this, more and more I think about it, I think it becomes more and more valuable. Because as I said in the early game, we don't right now have like any drops I really like to play except for the 4 drops that gives value on K. So you could just play this one to draw 2 cards. Drawing cards is really good, but also you could stack it in Trigger with Hiyori, and you could also naturally get it from Trigger. So I think this is a viable option. You should probably also pick it up just to have it in case it's played. And then we have the Red Rock and the Tiger. I think Tiger probably is an auto-include 4 in the deck, because it can act as a 2-key counter, but it also is crazy good against the 3 other big bad wolves in the format in Green, Purple, Luffy, Doflamingo and Teach. It's good against all of them, so I don't see why you should not run this as a 4-off in the deck. And you can also get Trigger from it, it's really good, and you can also stack it with Hiyori if you want to remove things. So I think this card will be really good. Red Rock might also see play, but I think it will not see play as a 4-off. It all depends how the problem is with these bigger leaders like Shanks, Bonnie and NL. So this might also see play. And then we have You're the One Who Should Disappear. I think this card will at least see played at 2, maybe even as a 4-off. But 2-off is like what I feel like is the most fitting thing for this deck. So it has the crazy trigger, which you can stack with Hiyori, you can get it naturally, but you also can trash one of these bigger cards you have in hand to make it act as a 1k together with being a 2k. So I think this card will probably see play at some capacity, but we will see the ratios for it. Then we also have an interesting card in the Rishi. It's kind of like Pilaf, but it's more of a budget version. You get to search with it, but like a lot of the cards you want does not have a trigger. So I think Pilaf is just a straight up better version because it has the really good trigger too. But if you are looking to play more of these triggers like Nami's and others ones to find them, this card actually becomes viable too. And I think you can also take Tiger with it, which actually also pushes it a little bit more as an option. But in the end, if you find Tiger in the top 5, if you play Pilaf for example, then you get to draw 2. And when you come to the turn where you want to use Tiger, you're probably already going to see Tiger in hand either way, because you get to draw cards naturally. So I don't think this card will see play over Pilaf, but it's definitely an interesting choice. So now for my thoughts, how I think the deck will be played. I think you will play this more straw hat mid-range kind of version who sets up value in the early game to then go into late game and drop these bigger things like Sanji, like the new 8-cost Luffy. Maybe you even play Yamato in the deck, and yeah, just to outvalue your opponent. So Flampe, Shira, I think in my list right now. Then I have the Hiyori, of course, maybe even Pilaf, maybe Vivi, just to like amass resources in the early game to then have cards in hand to answer what your opponent want to do, and then drop your big things in the late game. And I'm also thinking a little bit about like how to approach, obviously like when the set comes out, then we will know how the deck will be played in Japan, so we don't have to speculate that much, but I feel like I like the options to play it more like NL or Whitebeard, to go down low in early game and put up a lot of resources in hand. Then you don't get to utilize your leader, but you open cards like Yamato for example, which is really good, especially also against the decks that are good in the format, not counting Teach. So yeah, this is my initial thoughts of the new Sweden Nami. I'm hyped that we're getting a blue and yellow leader that's actually probably good. And also I could say I think Queen also benefits from these cards getting added to the pool. But in general, I think Nami will be the blue and yellow deck going forward, and I'm really hyped for the capability of deck building. So thanks a lot guys for watching. I'm not the biggest fan of doing these videos where I react to new cards and hyping up, but Nami I think is so fundamentally different than all of these other things revealed, and I'm really looking forward to at least try it out before making a decision what I'm going to play in OP11. So once this card or the cards hit the sim, I'm going to play a lot, so I'm looking forward to it. With all that said, thanks for watching again, and I hopefully see you in the next one.